Dedicating your life to leading a nonprofit organization is a noble thing. But personally undergoing elective surgery to donate an organ to a stranger, that takes things to the next level.
That was my goal when I turned 60, was to be able to help another human being and know that I could potentially start a chain of donations as well through the paired kidney exchange program, which I did ultimately. 4 people benefited through my organ donation.
That's the CEO of the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin, Michael Crowley, who donated a kidney to someone he didn't know. I'm Monica Fox, Vice President of Government Relations and External Affairs for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, and your host for this edition of The Journey Continues. This time, I'm talking to Mike about why he decided to donate a kidney. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Monica. Thank you very much for having me.
Can you tell us a bit about your background and what led you to your role as CEO of NKF of Wisconsin?
Well, I've had an interesting path to get to this point as CEO at National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin. We are located just outside of Milwaukee, and we cover the entire state of Wisconsin. Many, many years ago, I was in manufacturing, really enjoyed manufacturing and what I did for a living. But our son was diagnosed with type 1 juvenile diabetes back in 1999. And instead of, just feeling sorry and why him and so forth, I decided I'm going to reach out and see if there's an organization that supports that cause. So I found Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, now known as Breakthrough T1D. But before that, it was Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And I got very involved with that nonprofit from all levels, elected to the board of directors, and then involved in all their events. Through those years, I really enjoyed being a volunteer in the nonprofit sector while I was in manufacturing. And then one day I had an opportunity to join Habitat for Humanity of Waukesha County, Wisconsin. And I went for it, and I became CEO there. I was there for 2 years. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was such a pleasure to work with so many fun, kind, generous people, building homes, running a Habitat Restore, working with volunteers. I thrived. I just loved working for Habitat. Even though I led the organization, I was out on the road, picking up furniture, working on homes, volunteering at events, and so forth. One day, I decided to join LinkedIn Premium to try to find more donors, sponsors for our Habitat events and builds. And as I was scrolling through, I saw an orange symbol. I scrolled back. It was a kidney, National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin. And I saw they were looking for a CEO. I wasn't looking for a job, but I had this pull, this desire to read the description for the position, and it was a CEO. And I showed my wife and I said, "Doesn't that describe me?" And she said, "But you're not looking for anything different." I said, "No, but this is pulling at me." And so I took the big leap. I applied, and a month later, I'm at National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin. That was just over 5 years ago. I just felt this calling to continue serving in the nonprofit sector and leading an organization such as this. There's a catch here. I leaped and didn't know anything about kidney disease. I didn't know anything about organ transplantation. What I knew was that type 1 diabetes, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, you have more of a chance of developing kidney disease in your lifetime. That was the leap I took. I thought, you know what? I was involved with Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation for over a quarter century. I need to get more involved in this organization. That's how I got here.
It sounds like it was meant to be.
It was.
So I'm wondering, what was the pivotal moment that made you consider living donation, especially since you came in not knowing anything about kidney disease?
It's an amazing story. I came in during the pandemic, towards the tail end of the pandemic, and I couldn't get out and meet people. Health networks, everybody was basically closed up. So I learned a lot about kidney disease, organ transplantation, our mission in advocacy and being a resource. And I loved it. And the more I learned, the more I knew there was a need for better kidney health education out in the community and doing more kidney early evaluation health screenings, free ones around our state. I learned a lot about dialysis. I learned a lot about living donation and deceased donation. 3.5 years into my position here, I was approaching two significant turning points, events that occurred. One was an organization participated in the National Kidney Foundation's drive for dialysis, where an organization will sponsor and put together care bags for dialysis clinics. I thought, this is pretty cool. What do we do with them? Well, we deliver them to the dialysis clinics to give them some hope, give them something fun to do, and cheer them up. Well, I thought, this is just the right job for Mike Crowley. I thought, I want to be part of this. I don't want to send a volunteer or another staff member. I want to go pick them up. I want to talk with the organization, and then I want to go deliver them. So that's what I did. And my 5 to 10 minute pickup turned into be a 2-hour visit with the organization that sponsored those care bags. And they learned a lot, and I learned a lot about them. And then I hit the road, and I had 3 stops. The first stop was a dialysis clinic in Milwaukee, one of the oldest in the state. And I, was all excited about this. And, I'm going to get a picture, big on social media. So I thought, get a picture of me delivering these care bags. Take a picture with staff. They greeted me. They're all smiley, happy. I walk in to the dialysis clinic, and I hear the pumps going. And I see all the people that were sitting in the chairs, many of them sleeping. I was a different person when I walked in there. I didn't know how to talk to the people because they weren't really welcoming. They are sitting in a chair. Their life is dependent on this dialysis, and I had not visited a dialysis clinic before. And it really got to me. I tried to be cheery. I did get an occasional thank you, but for the most part, they just were minding their own business and didn't want to interact. And I realized how tough it is for them, sitting there 2, 4, 6 hours a day, every other day for the rest of their life. When I finished, I tried to be cheery. I thanked everyone, the staff, and I went to my truck, and I went to post a photo of me delivering the care bags. I didn't have a photo of the inside of them sitting on the chairs connected to the pumps, but it was visual in my mind. And as I was describing it in my Facebook post, I started crying. And every time I talk about this, I get teary because I'll never forget it. It's something you never forget, something that you see for the first time, and their lives are dependent on a machine the rest of their life. Went to the next one, and the same thing happened to me. Welcomed, cheery. I get back in my truck and do another post, and I started crying, literally crying, not a tear. I am so grateful that I don't have family, that I am not one of those people that are getting dialysis. I went to the third one, and that was it. I felt the same. I felt a resolve, though, that, wow, there is definitely a need for more kidney donations. More people need to help these people. That was the spark. That was what got me, because for 3.5 years with this organization, advocating, talking about kidney donation, all organs for transplantation, better kidney health, I never once considered becoming a living donor. Not once. I thought, that's for super special people that are superheroes, and it takes a lot of bravery and courage to do something like that. I don't think I could do it. Well, that changed when I went to those 3 dialysis clinics. The one thing I want to share about dialysis clinics is the staff. They are amazing. They build relationships. Those patients are like family, and they care so much for those people that are dependent on these machines, and it is their hope to continue life but it's not pleasant. It's very hard. So that stuck with me. The second turning point, and this was the trigger, is that was in August of 2024. I had a Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation Ride to Cure Diabetes, a ride that I founded many, many years prior. And I'm a USA cycling coach, a bicyclist. And I coach people to cross the finish line, fundraise, nutrition, safe bicycling. I started thinking over those couple months prior, maybe I'm healthy enough, maybe I could be a living kidney donor. But no, I don't know about that. And I thought, when I turned 60 years old, that was the day of the ride. I'm riding 102 miles in 3 states on a bicycle in 90-degree weather. And if I am 60 years old that day and I get off my bike and I am doing well, I must be healthy enough. Maybe I could be a living kidney donor. Well, I did. I got off my bike at the finish line, and there was a little girl that walked up to me and put a medal around my neck and congratulated me and said, "You're a hero." And I'm a coach. I'm not a hero. I'm a coach. I'm helping others. And I crossed that finish line seeing her, and it reminded me of my son. And it reminded me of people in those dialysis chairs, because this girl, she had type 1 diabetes, and she's calling me a hero. They're the ones that are heroes. They're the ones that are struggling day in and day out. So at that moment, I told myself, I'm right along the Mississippi River at the finish line, and I said, when I get back to my room, I'm going to say a prayer that I have the courage. I can do this. I am going to apply. When I get back to work on Monday, I am going to sign up. I'm going to log in to one of the 3 transplant centers. I'll pick one and see where it takes me. Well, I kept my promise to myself, and I did. And that's how I got to that point. And those 2 things, actually it was 3, turning 60 on that bike ride day and the dialysis clinics. That's what triggered me into thinking I can do this, and I'm grateful for my health. Let's see what happens.
Well, I'm grateful for you, Mike, and especially as I am a person who spent over 3 years on in-center hemodialysis, sitting in those chairs, wondering when it would end for me one way or another. I appreciate and understand how you felt after having that experience. And I thank you for allowing that to have you do the heroic thing of donating a kidney altruistically. So how'd your experience with kidney disease at NKF Wisconsin affect your perspective on organ donation?
We know, and we need to continue to educate the public, that there are over 100,000 people waiting for a life-saving organ transplant and over 90,000 nationwide awaiting a kidney transplant to save their life, to change their story. And in Wisconsin, there's just over 1,200 people waiting for a kidney transplant. The education that I have now with the organization and the community, working with health professionals, good kidney health is everyone's responsibility. And there's a 1 in 3 chance that you are at risk for chronic kidney disease. I never knew that statistic to be that significant. And so knowing that, and knowing that there is such a need for kidney donations, whether it's deceased, that's just as important as living kidney donation. The living kidney donation allows the recipient to potentially live many years longer. So that was the decision I made, is I wanted to go down that path. I am an organ donor on my driver's license. I've been since I had my driver's license, but living donation can really make that impact. So good kidney health, educating people about kidney health, and knowing the need for more organs, more kidneys for transplant, it really made a difference in my perspective on the need.
Did you have any fears or concerns about the donation process?
I was hoping you would ask me that question. A lot of people have asked me about this. It's probably the number 1 question I get. I had zero fear. I can't believe it. I don't understand it. I had a police officer ask me about that. He said, "Boy, you sure had the courage to do this. I don't know where you found the courage, but I could never do it." And I was a police officer. I say, I don't know where you get the courage to put on a badge every day. And he says, "Oh no, Mike, you're at a different level with the courage." And I said, "You know what? It wasn't courage. Obviously, there's a little bit. There's a little bit of, you have to prep yourself. So when you become a living donor, you need to make sure you have everything in order. There is such a tiny, tiny percentage chance that something could go wrong, is with any surgery. So, of course, your will, and, you think, okay, is this the last time I'm going to be doing this or that or at work? I really didn't have any fear. It was gratefulness. I was grateful that through the whole assessment process, the health evaluation, the psychosocial assessment, I got through all of that, and I was an excellent candidate. At 60 years old, I'm an excellent candidate to be a living kidney donor. 9 out of 10 people that apply don't get approved. 9 out of 10 people that do get approved back out for a variety of reasons. And it's not worth talking about, but things can happen, life changes and so forth. You can still get cold feet, but I did not have fear because I was grateful. And I am grateful enough to be able to help another human being. And that was my goal when I turned 60, was to be able to help another human being and know that I could potentially start a chain of donations as well through the Paired Kidney Exchange Program, which I did ultimately. 4 people benefited through my organ donation. So no, I did not have any fear, like being scared. I have more concern of going to a dentist. And matter of fact, a week after I had my 6-month evaluation, I went to the dentist and I had to have a cavity filled. And when they poked me with the Novocaine, I said, that hurt more than donating a kidney. And the dentist said, "You're kidding." And I said, "No, I'm not kidding." And it was very brief. That's the whole other thing is, people fear pain and surgery and all of that. I was educated enough by the transplant center that they will take care of it. They will minimize it. I had no pain. None. Everyone's journey is different, though. So some people, it wasn't that I had a high threshold for pain. No, I had no pain. The pain management was excellent during the process. And a day and a half later, I was not taking anything. I haven't taken any pain meds for anything since just over a year ago.
That's great. So can you walk us through the steps that you had to take to become a living kidney donor?
To begin, it's a huge decision to make that decision to log on and inquire on your computer. And that's what I did. I just picked one of the 3 centers and I saw their process and click, click, click. Before you know it, you get a response, you get an email, you get a phone call, and they walk you through it. Before you know it, you're on a 1-hour or 2-hour conversation, answering health questions, doing a psychosocial assessment. That happens numerous times. Why would you want to donate your kidney? And at every instance through this whole process, you're given an opportunity. Do you want to continue? And I always said yes. There was never any doubt. And so sometimes it takes 4 to 6 months to get through that process. Some people it could be up to a year. Some people it's just a few months. I was on the fast track, being that I answered questions well to be approved and I was healthy. It was just over 2 months. So August 5th was when I first applied. And in September, I was given a all clear. We would like to invite you in for a 8-hour full evaluation, physical. It will be the most extensive physical you receive in your life. I was a little concerned about that. So when we talk about scared or worried or fear, there was a little bit on that side of things, not the surgery, not donating a kidney. It was more of, okay, I'm getting a full physical. What if they find something? And I thought, you know what? This would be a good thing because I could catch something early. This would also be a good thing is if I had cancer or had something that would not allow me to be approved, I could then go back to work, back as CEO of National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin, share what I went through, and I was not approved. And I was okay to talk about that. I knew that I was going to want to talk about the process either way. But I was approved that day, October 16th of 2024. I was conditionally approved. I just needed to get a colonoscopy. That was scheduled in November. That's separate from the full evaluation. Once that was approved, I was all clear. See you in 10 years, Mike. Wow. I could feel this pull, like, I am really going to save somebody's life now because I'm going to be fully approved. Well, I got a call December 2nd, 2024, from my living donor coordinator saying, would you like to be activated on the National Kidney Registry now? You are fully approved, and you had selected a date for surgery to donate, and I picked January 8th. It was the first available at the transplant clinic hospital, and I said, yes, let's do it. They said, well, there's a chance that you could be matched pretty quickly. And I said, how quickly? Well, it could be a week or two, maybe sooner. Many times it's a few months, 3-4 months before you're matched. Knowing that my kidney would go somewhere in the country, somewhere in the United States, that somebody needs a kidney, it was just a great feeling. And I said, let's do it. Wednesday, December 4th, I got a call. We found a match, and the person is in Wisconsin. It could have been anywhere else in the country, and it was in Wisconsin. And would you still like to go forward and so forth? And yes. Wow. A flood of tears hit me. I was shaken. I knew that somebody's life is now dependent on me, that I am a match for somebody. And there's no such thing as a perfect match, but it was a close match. And it was something that I needed to start planning for, because now I do have that date of January 8th confirmed. I had a pre-op on December 30th of 2024. Pre-op went great. And then surgery time, save a lifetime, share my spare, one to live, one to give. And I was excited. I wasn't concerned. I wasn't scared. I was excited. That was the process. The surgery. So I went in the night before to a local hotel and stayed there because I needed to be in the hospital at 5:30 in the morning. And when I went in, things went pretty quickly. Put on the gown. Doctor came in, explained a few things to me, explained what she would do, and any questions. And I said no, and rolled into surgery swiftly. And within just a few minutes of being in surgery, lights were out. I remember seeing it was 7:31 a.m. I woke up at 12:54 p.m. My surgery was just a little bit longer than it should have been because my kidney had some fat on it and they had to be careful removing it so they weren't going to damage it. And I woke up and I was smiling. My nurse asked, how's your pain? And I exaggerated. I said maybe a 5 or 6. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any. So they said, okay, the pain meds are working great. And my recovery was amazing. I could have been out in a day, but because we live over an hour away from the hospital, I wanted to stay that second night just to make sure everything was okay. I didn't have any more pain meds after a day and a half. I was sent home, and on January 10th, I get out of the car to go into the house, and I was able to walk up the stairs with no issues, no pain. And so began my 6-week recovery process. And I listened to the doctors, drinking plenty of water and rest. And I healed exceptionally well, no issues, and returned to work 6 weeks later. And I have had no complaints, no issues. My life is so much different now, different in the way that I have a new outlook on life and helping others, and how I feel healthier because I'm drinking more water. I'm eating better. And there's studies that say that those that donate a kidney actually could potentially live a longer life because they are more conscious of what they are eating, because your remaining kidney needs to take care of you the rest of your life. It was just an amazing experience. I would do it again year after year. if I would have that same experience.
That's awesome. So glad that the process went well for you. Now, Mike, can you share the emotional journey that you've experienced throughout this process, especially post-surgery?
The emotional journey, it's a roller coaster. There are some things that are explained to you with your living donor coordinator. He or she will share with you that you may experience depression, a loss of an organ. You may feel great, which is how I was. You're more sensitive, more aware of people's emotions when it comes to a need for any kind of health situation, even if it's not organ donation. I don't feel that it's being a hero. I haven't heard that from a whole lot of people either, because I try to squash that. It's not about that. It's about what can you do to help mankind? What can you do to improve others' lives? I feel I am a more aware person of others' needs and emotions in regards to their health. It's been quite a journey as far as that goes too. So there's the physical side, which there was very little physical issues at all. There was not actually none. I actually pedaled my bicycle 6 months later, 123 miles in 3 days to go to all 3 transplant centers in Wisconsin, just to bring recognition to their programs and highlight, hey, you can live a normal, healthy life with 1 kidney. And here I am 6 months after riding 123 miles and giving them recognition and showing, hey, here's a 60-year-old guy, soon to be 61 at that time. And I'm actually living a very normal, healthy life.
Mike, what message do you hope to convey to our listeners about the importance of living kidney donation?
Well, all organs for transplant are necessary. Number 1 organ is kidney. That's the organ that needs the most donations. And being a living kidney donor is very helpful for that recipient. The recipient can live a longer life and potentially fewer complications with that living kidney donation. The message I'd like to share is the National Kidney Registry, and there's another organization or two out there, they have a voucher program. And the voucher program is a game changer in becoming a living kidney donor. In my situation, I wanted to donate to somebody. I donated 9 gallons of blood over the past 10, 11 years, and I never knew anybody I met that I donated blood to and saved their life just because I wanted to do it. Well, you can do that with a living kidney donation as well. And how you can protect yourself and your family is through the voucher program. So say you just want to do it. Only about 1,000, 1,100 people a year do that. We need more people to step up and do that when they hear about the voucher program. There are different scenarios with the voucher program, but I'll share mine specifically. Mine was a non-directed donation. So I donated to somebody else, never expecting to hear from that person. And in return, I receive 1 voucher for myself. So if I ever need a living kidney donation, I will be moved to the top of the transplant list. But that's a very slim chance. I receive 5 vouchers for the opportunity for a family member that each one of them, so my wife, son, daughter, daughter-in-law, grandson, they all have a voucher. If any time in their lifetime they need a kidney transplant, one of them, only one, can turn it in and get it activated, and they are moved to the top of the transplant list. So what I've done is I saved somebody by donating to a stranger. I protected myself by I get a voucher automatically, and then I got 5 other vouchers to share with my family that someday if they need a transplant, I am not needing to apply. Maybe I'm not healthy enough. Maybe I'm not here anymore. I just save them from the grave if I have passed away or if I'm not healthy enough to donate. It's like a love insurance policy for a family member. That's how I talked to them about why I wanted to do this. There was that bonus. The original reason was to help somebody, but I have this bonus opportunity to help my family understand, hey, this can help you as well. And we can save so many more lives through that voucher program. And ultimately, I did hear from my recipient, and I found out my recipient's spouse donated a kidney to a stranger, moved that recipient of mine up the chain, and then continued paired kidney exchange, and 4 people's lives were saved through the voucher program. That's what I want to share, is that if anything can be taken away from this conversation, for me, it was a breeze. I'd do it again, but check out the voucher program. It's a game changer, and you get excited and you want more and more people to know about this because you can save more lives. And since a year ago, I have talked to many, many people, and there are a half a dozen people that are going through this process right now because of our conversations.
That is amazing. I love that voucher program. I agree with you. It's an absolute game changer. So how important is it for individuals to have discussions with their family about organ donation?
Well, it's very important. It's perhaps one of the biggest decisions of your life. You do need to prepare what you should prepare anyway in your life. So having your power of attorney and your will and getting things in order, it's not meant to scare you. You need to do that anyway. But it's important to let them know what your wishes are, whether it's deceased donation, having that on your driver's license, or becoming a living kidney donor. Let them know why you want to do this. And I'll state specifically, my daughter asked me, almost in tears, but Dad, you're healthy. You just had an evaluation and you're in excellent health. Why would you put yourself at risk? Why would you have a surgery that you could die? So because my living donor coordinator talked and educated me and some of the knowledge I knew prior, there was no fear. There is such a slim chance of anything very negatively going wrong in that process. It's a very safe surgery. It's not perfect, but explaining to them first why you would want to do this, and then sharing some facts and getting them involved in the knowledge of what's going to happen to you, your recovery. You need that support system after your surgery. So your family needs to be around you to support you if you need assistance. And I could only lift up to a 10-pound item. So basically a gallon of water or milk is the most weight I could carry for 6 weeks. And you can't take care of your pets. You can't lift your pets up. We have 2 dogs. I couldn't lift my dogs. They need to know what's all involved, and that it's not something that you can just come back home and you're ready to go back to work. There is a short recovery period. Some people are back at work in 2 weeks, but those that have a physical job and so forth, you definitely need to be at least 6 weeks.
So how can listeners get involved or support kidney donation efforts in their communities?
There are many routes to go with that. So with National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin, our website, kidneywi.org, or you could go to kidney.org. But with Wisconsin specifically, you can go to our website, and we list all the transplant facilities. There are 3 in Wisconsin. That's one way. And there's a wealth of information, organ donation, kidney health, and so forth. Another way to pursue this is National Kidney Registry. You could go to their website as well. Simple Google search, National Kidney Registry, and they'll walk you through that as well. If you know somebody that you want to donate a kidney to, or there's a family member and there's already the in where they have a transplant coordinator and they have information, work with them, work with that hospital that this is what you would want to do, and you want to be considered an organ donor. And they will then walk you through that process. And then always, always, always remember National Kidney Registry and vouchers. The voucher program, like I said, is a game changer. And not only could you potentially save your friend or a loved one, if you're not a match to them, you will be a match to somebody else. You can move them up to the top of the transplant list, and you potentially could start a chain. Now you've saved at least 2 lives. And it's an amazing feeling to be a living kidney donor.
Mike, you mentioned that you've spoken to your recipient. Have you had a chance to meet?
I'm glad you brought this up. There is what's called the correspondence program. So when you donate anonymously, they may choose not to know who the donor is and vice versa. You may donate and say, I don't want to know who my recipient is. I was okay with that. And you talk to your transplant or your living donor coordinator about that when you go through this process. And I said, well, I don't need to know. It would be nice to know. I think it would be pretty cool. We'll talk about that after I donate. Maybe I'll change my mind. So there's this correspondence program that you can write a letter and it goes to the hospital. All you provide on the letter is your first name and that's it. And you can write as many letters, send cards, whatever you'd like. And then they'll send it to your recipient and then your recipient will read it and it's their choice to respond back to you. I sent 3 letters. The first 2, I didn't get a response. Sent the next letter and I got a response. And I got a 1.5-page letter that is like gold to me. It described what my recipient went through, why he needed a kidney transplant, and how grateful he was and his family, how grateful they were that somebody, a stranger, would donate. That's all I need. And someday maybe I will hear back. I am planning on writing another letter. But again, it's not that I need to do that. The satisfaction of knowing that day when I donated my kidney, that it was on its way to save a life, that's all I cared about. And I felt great. I mean, I was smiling. I was anxious to walk, but I couldn't walk for several hours. And yeah, the correspondence program is great because there are people that may really want to continue sharing how they feel, but less than half actually get a response. And it's okay because the recipient, they have struggles. And I'll share that my recipient had some struggles. They have to dial in the immunosuppressive drugs and it's a roller coaster ride to know what they had to deal with before the transplant, the dialysis. I mean, it's been quite a journey for them. They're the true heroes. To get through all those points of life stages just to stay alive in dialysis and then have a major surgery like that, their whole life changes so much for the better. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for sharing this very impactful information, and most especially thank you for your passion and your commitment to the kidney world. It is very special.
Well, thank you, Monica.
Dialysis and transplant are 2 treatments for kidney failure. Transplant's the best. For more information about living donation, visit nkfi.org. I'm Monica Fox, a grateful 2-time kidney transplant recipient, and this is The Journey Continues. Prevention's a key part of our mission at the Kidney Foundation. That's why at the end of each episode, we share a health tip.
Here's today's health and prevention tip on quitting smoking. The dangers of smoking are well known. In addition to heart disease, lung disease, and cancer, smoking cigarettes can also significantly increase your chances of developing kidney disease. Smoking slows the flow of blood to the kidneys. When less blood reaches the kidneys, it impairs their ability to function properly. Smoking also increases the risk of kidney cancer by about 50%. Need help quitting? Speak with your healthcare provider or call 1-800-QUIT-NOW for help and resources.